everyone, welcome back to another episode of Urban Informatics Over Coffee. You are here with Ellen and she is down on caffeine. She is waiting for her coffee to be delivered to her table. But in the meantime, she has enough time to run you through 8 data sources that you can use when you're mapping out an area. And the first one is opentrees.org. And opentrees.org is the world's largest open data source for trees. So it goes not just Melbourne, but the whole world. It relies solely on open data though. Hence why you can see it's patchy. So the city of Melbourne would have a great open data source for its trees, but other councils might not be so forthcoming with data, hence why it looks very patchy. But if your area for your development happens to be covered by open trees, it's a great source to see what trees are around your site and what you will be impacting. So if you press on any dot, you can see its scientific name, common name, diameter, height, and how many other trees there are of that. But the good thing is as well, it tells you where that data source came from, and you can see it came from the city of Glen Eira. If I press on the city of Glen Eira source, it lets you download the raw data. So it's not just a mapping software for you to look at, you can download the data and implant it into your own maps as well. We'll move on to the next one. And the next one is Digital Twin Victoria, and this is Victoria's state government initiative to try and map the entire Victoria in 3D. To do this one, you have to add data to the map. So it has lots of 3D data, including BIM models. So if we add to map, and the ideal zoom button will show us where it's been added. So there are some 3D buildings of the Sunbury train line. But if we add some more useful data, we'll do that again. We'll look at Ballarat's 3D texture building. So you can see the Council of Ballarat has actually got some decent 3D buildings. And if you press on a building that you're interested in, you can get the information about it, including its height, its area, whatever it has available when you press on it. The thing about Digital Twin Victoria is you can download this table as a CSV, but you cannot directly download the spatial data. Like you can't pull these 3D buildings into like a Revit model or a Rhino model. So it's handy if you want specific buildings, heights and whatnot, but it's prettier to look at than it is practical to use. Moving along. ABS Maps is very basic in what it does. It will map out, among things, statistical area. If I press this one, you can see it's got the boundaries of all the statistical areas. When I press on upper plenty, it actually lets you jump up a level to the next statistical area and then back down again. So it's quite convenient. If you have a site, you can grab what areas it applies to and then search for that data elsewhere. Here you can also press data by region and it takes you to this separate thing. But if we explore just a bit better, we can view the data for Greater Melbourne and it will give you some not spatial data, but some geographical data that you can use when you're interpreting a site or planning a design for a site. But I'll leave it at this for now. The next one is Pedestrian Catch, which is actually a great little tool for measuring how far bikes or people can move away from a certain point. So if I search Hawthorn, it'll give me an area and place a dot for me to move around. Say I wanted to actually measure from 2 dots. This speed bar lets me choose how fast a person moves or a bike moves. So if you're an elderly person walking, you'd be moving slower. If you're on a bike, you'd be moving faster. So let's say we're going to go 8.2 meters per second. This time bar lets you pick the radius in which the shape will stop generating. So I'm going to say stop after this person or this bike has moved away from these points for 10 minutes. This gradient bar can act as a barrier. Say you don't want the path to be generated if it is steeper than 1.14 because you're trying to see if it's a passive bike route, for example, because over 1.14 would be too intense for what you're trying to map. And then start the scenario from these 2 points. And once it finishes loading, you can see that at a speed of 8 meters per second in 10 minutes, you can get very far. The good thing about PegCatch is that you can now download this shape as a KML or a GeoJSON and use it in your project. So it's very handy information in terms of mapping where people get to within a certain amount of time. The next one I've touched briefly on before, and that's DataVic, where it houses all of Victoria's open source data. So if I search for what I'm looking for, say the bushfire management overlay, and press search, you will get the results pulled, and you can either refine your search or you do find the thing you're looking for and you pick that. So I'm going to say I was looking for this one, so I press on it. It gives you lots of options to download the spatial information as, and say I want a shaped file, you would press explore. The strange thing about DataVic is that you have to order the data. It's all free, but you still have to order it. So if I add it to order and then proceed to order configuration, here you need to choose your projection. I will just go with this one. I would usually select no buffer format. I want a shapefile, and you can either select all available data, so it would pull everything from the state, or if you're not interested in the whole thing, you can just come in and define your own area. So the smaller the area, the faster you'll get your data. If you're pulling the whole state, it might take a long time for the data to be delivered to you. So if I press apply, I would then proceed to cart, saying it's total cost zero, it's free data. And then you proceed to your details, and then you need to either have an account or just continue as guest. And once you hit confirm, the data will be processed in the background and it will get dropped to your email address. So it's not always straight away. Like I said, it depends on your file size. It's a bit annoying being this way rather than just hitting a download button and it appearing in your downloads, but the quality of the data is very good. The next one is Atlas of Living, and Atlas of Living is all of Australia's biodiversity data that's free to use again. So you have to add data to the map to be able to see it. So if I add to the map, say a species, you get a lot of options in terms of what it's pulling and putting your map. So I only want valid records. You can, include everything that might or might not be valid. And then some more options, like you only want data that was recorded during a date range. Do you want to pull all species? That might be a bit chaotic. Or you can just add a species. So it does scientific or common name. So if I just use the example of giant burrowing frog, there it is. We'll then come down to the next section. More options depending on what you want. I'm going to say include animal movement data and what area would you be interested. I'm just going to tick Australia and go next. Then it would pop up over here for you to edit further. So I want it to appear as yellow and have the size super big. Not sure how common this species is, so I'm gonna hope some of it pops up. There you go. So all these data points are where this species has been recorded, and then you can review that record as well. Add many layers onto the map, but we're going to stop at one. I'm going to export points because I'm pretty sure they're point data for Australia. Press next, and then you can download the data from Atlas of Living as a CSV. Sadly, shapefiles is no longer an option apparently. Next one is National Map, which is the federal government's answer to their policy for open data. So it's all of the federal government's data that they have. And again, it's another one where you need to add layers to the map. So they have lots of folders with lots of information. We're a fan of transport, so we're going to pick some rail information. We're going to add railway lines and maybe railway stations. And as you can see, it's slowly loading in the data. So any data you expect the federal government to have that's free to the public, of course. You can probably find it in National Map. And to download data, you can press on something that appears in the map. You can see its features here, and you can download this data as a CSV or a GeoJSON. With National Map, despite having good data set, you might come across data that doesn't have a download option available, and that's because the source of the data has not made it available to the public in that form. So not all data sources in National Map you'll be able to download and import into your own maps. And the last overview of a data source for this video is Auran. And Auran is a national research lab, I'm going to say, for urban and planning data. So it pulls information from 111 organisations, and it's not solely government agencies and departments. So if we search data, say I'm interested to see if there's any spatial data on poverty, it found 13 data sets for poverty, and it's pulled it from these organisations, so 2 universities and 1 government organisation. They're all open access and they have these tags, so you can refine your search here if you're looking for something more specific. Say I was looking for Essay 2 Estimating Homelessness 2011. I'll press on this data source, press Explore, go to Resource, log in before you can go to resource, and then it will take you to the download manager. So you can pick from these 4. I like a KML, and then you can just press download. Success, it's downloaded. You can now import that wherever your heart desires. But back on the data page, you can see it's got its information here. This box up here shows how big that data set is, so it's covering the entirety of Australia. But if you had, say, information from just a Victorian government department, it might only show a square around Victoria. The thing with Auran is there's no way to preview the data before you download it, so you trust the integrity of the data, but you know it might not be what you're looking for once you import it. But that's it, folks. That's the end of this overview of 8 free open source platforms for all your data desires. And just for fun, while I have Auran open, see if there's any results for coffee, and there's not. How very, very disappointing. But thank you so much for sticking around, and I hope you found this helpful, and I will catch you in the next video.